Fairbanks as it appeared in early 1941. Weeksfield in the upper right corner of the screen, Chena Slough at the bottom, and Ladd Field is out of the picture to the left. Landing west to east at Weeks Field. The pilot was Fred Gentry, the airplane a Stinson SR-10 FM N216. Area west of Weeks Field. Chena Slough barely visible behind the panel truck. By the Fairbanks post office, Sam White walking down the street. A Lockheed 10E, operated by VintageAlaska Airways. The first DC-3 to land at Weeks Field. Offloading in front of the PAA hangar. This was a proving flight to begin DC-3 passenger operations. The people aboard were CAA and PAA officials. Taking off for the return flight to Seattle. Early 1941, Noah Wien landing his Fairchild 71 at Weeks Field. (1941), a Wien Balanka N10795 taking off from Weeks Field. A general view of the hangar line at Weeks Field. This was in 1941. A PAA Pilgrim parked in front of the PAA hangar. This was on St. Patrick's Day, 1941. A typical winter scene just east of Fairbanks. The man in the picture is John D. Noble, the FBI agent. Stinson N216 taking off from Weeks Field. Departing Weeks Field in a PAA Lockheed 10E en route Nome. Looking up into the cockpit, along the Tanana, approaching Ruby, the airport on top of the hill under the black dot. Along the Yukon, approaching Ruby from west to east, the village is in the draw directly ahead at the top of the screen, the airport on top of the hill. All winter landings were on the river at Ruby. On the river, the airport on top of the hill, the village of Ruby. It was pretty cold and we had to keep the engines covered. Departing Nulato off the river again. Just beyond the village here, the airport will come from under the wing with a cemetery right in front of it. This is Nulato. The cemetery, the airport right behind it. Over the hills between Nulato and Norton Sound. Wind blowing, snow from the ridges down below. Norton Sound, Golovin off to the right, Unalakleet off to the left. This is a trip with Frank Pollock from Fairbanks to Livengood in his Blanca Skyrocket. We had a load of 700 loaves of bread. The airport at Livengood. Typical scene. Frank Pollock walking down the main street of Livengood. On the return flight, we had a load of dogs. The hangar line at the east end of Weeks Field. I don't know whose the Waco was. This is Wien's Traveler 6000. Sam White and his monocoop. Sam White was the Fish and Wildlife agent. Sam lighting a fire pot. He was a big man and certainly filled the monocoop, but he thought it was the finest airplane ever built. Traveler 6000 taxiing to the west. Gillum's hangar. This was all 1941. The FAA Blanca being taken off of skis and put on wheels. Jim Dodson Stinson, PAA's hangar. A 10E and a Pilgrim. This is Bill Lavery taking off from Weeks Field. He flew between Anchorage and Fairbanks every day. Al Lyle's Traveler 6000 at Weeks Field. Al Lyle was from Valdez and also Copper Center. This is Gillam's hangar. Tom Appleton was his longtime mechanic. Gillam flew contract mail for PAA between Fairbanks and Bethel. A 10E. You can see he had a full load of passengers. Frank Pollock's Blanca Skyrocket. These were taken from the CAA's Fairchild 24. This is somewhere in the vicinity of, this one is in the vicinity of McKinley Park, I believe, just before getting to McKinley Park. It didn't have much power, and we used to climb all the way and then come down. It's looking west towards Mount McKinley. This is near Summit. Well, McKinley is out there somewhere. This is headed north just before getting to Talkeetna. This is McKinley again. McKinley from near Talkeetna. On the Yukon during the breakup, this is out near Ruby. There's the airport at Ruby on top of the hill. Had a dog leg in it. The airport again and the range station. The range station at Ruby. More of the Ruby airport. The curve was banked and you go around it pretty fast. This is a Miro Stinson and a Traveler 6000 at Nome. That's a Miro 6000. Traveler 6000, looking out over the Bering Sea. This is a Wien Cessna that was flown by Frank Whaley. This is between Nome and Kotzebue in a Fairchild 24. Jack Peck on the ground at Candle, Alaska Star Airlines Blanca, FAA Fairchild. This is the town of Candle, the village of Candle across the river. I think the Fairchild just landing belonged to a preacher, but I don't remember his name or where he's from. Jack Peck taking off. I think these blankets were CH-300s. Norman Weaver and his Aranca K on the Chena Slough, just west of the runway at Weeks Field. He was practicing to get a seaplane rating. Weaver was later lost between Nome and Kotzebue. The general opinion is that he went into the water, as no trace of him was ever found. These pictures must have been made in early summer, sometime after the breakup, because there's still patches of snow around here and there. This was after PAA began its operations with passengers into Fairbanks. People walking out there were Sam White, Gazel Road, and Clarence Road. Clarence Road on the left, Gazel this way, facing this way, John Noble with the white collar, Sam White with the gray pants and hat. Gazel Road. Eagle River, just up the road from Anchorage. Stinson 216 at Hughes. Another picture of Hughes. Landing, this Alaska Airlines Blanca landing on the old field at McGrath before construction began. The CAA Dolphin, Douglas Dolphin. One of the Army's 4 B-18s. This was the 4th of July, 1941. The Air Force had 4 of these, and I think 6 P-36s and a B-17 up at Ladd Field. The B-17, as I recall, was serial number 1 and had no armament. It was up there for cold weather test. Eskimo Kids in Nome. This was celebrating 4th of July, 1941. This is on the main street of Nome, looking south. The 4th B-18 they couldn't start because the starter was broken. One of the local mechanics got it going in time for General Buckner to go home by putting a rubber shock cord on the propeller that Howard Hughes had planted there in connection with his around-the-world flight in the Lockheed 14. General Buckner was aboard these airplanes, one of them. The Nome Fire Department, some heavy equipment FAA was using to build the new airfield west of town. In the Dream Theater, there was an aisle down the middle. White people sat on one side of the aisle, the Eskimos on the other. Everybody turned out for 4th of July. There were a number of King Islanders in town who had come in a couple of large umiaks. The man on the left is chief of the King Islanders. The man on the right, I think, is a CAA communicator. Most of the Nome natives were dressed in Western-style clothes. All these in the Eskimo clothes are King Islanders. Look at the price on salmon. It's over $3 a pound here. This is an Eskimo game. You have to jump with both feet. It's remarkable how high these men can kick. This boy won just about everything. Foot races, bicycle race, Eskimo jumping, you name it, he was in on it. Blueberry pie eating contest. Nome had lots of blueberries. This is a greased pole climb. There were some $20 bills at the top. This man was kind of a nut. It was just barely freezing on this day, and watch what he does just in a minute. That's Frank Whaley. He was a senator from that district. Those were his Sunday go-to-meeting pants. This is the lost world. Remember, it was just barely freezing that day. That's Frank Whaley again. Getting ready for a blanket toss. I guess they gave up and decided to team up on the bills up the top. A blanket toss. Only they were using a walrus skin. The idea was to see how many tricks and things you could do while you're in the air. I don't remember who that is. This is Neva Whaley, an Army Douglas Dolphin, a large version of the CA one. I don't remember his model. This is looking north at Kotzebue. General Buckner was on this flight, and we were afraid they were all going to go aground here because the water is very shallow. NC-216 taking off from Kotzebue. I think they had about 700 feet there. The ever-present cemetery. The mechanic in white overalls was a Swiss mechanic. I don't remember the Eskimo's name, but he was a good mechanic. 216 coming into land at Kotzebue. On the Tanana, just south of Fairbanks. I went out to practice landing on sandbars to get used to sandbars, so if I got in trouble, I'd at least be close to home.